morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to look at some new cards from, well, Night Wanderer in Japan, Shrouded Fable over here. And we might get to a couple others in a minute, but first of all, what we really need to focus on, what we need to put all our time and attention into, just for a moment, the new Genesect. Genesect is an interesting Pokemon. Genesect tends to get good cards. Genesect also tends to play around with tools, and what Pokemon have gone and done is mashed it all together into a big old ball, and they've gone and given us this new Genesect. And if you like A-Specs, you might not like this. If you hate A-Specs, or at least you hate when your opponent takes advantage of them, might I introduce you to new Genesect. You see, what we've got here is, I'm going to be honest with you, an underwhelming attack, free energy, 100 damage, nobody cares. But we have a basic Pokemon with a very good ability. And it says, while this Pokemon has a Pokemon tool attached, your opponent cannot play A-Spec cards from their hand. Now, the wording of this is extremely important, okay? They cannot play A-Spec cards from their hand. But of course, A-Specs include Pokemon tools, stadiums, special energy. Any of these that are already in play will remain in play. The Neutral Center Stadium, which is coming around in the same set, that's a stadium that stops Pokemon without a rule box getting damaged by Pokemon EXs and Vs. If that's in play, that will stay in play. If your opponent has attached Hero's Cape to get an extra 100 HP, that will stay in play. If they have attached a Legacy Energy, for instance, that will stay in play. And while we're talking about Legacy Energy, remember there's only really one deck that we're expecting Legacy Energy to see any significant play in, and that is, of course, Lugia. It's a new special energy that counters any energy, but also means you give up one less prize when you're KO'd with it attached. And the thing is, Lugia's never attached... Well, okay, Lugia will sometimes attach this from hand. But most of the time, Lugia gets Archeops out, and Archeops uses its ability to attach it from the deck. That is absolutely fine. Now, the lovely Anton Billet has translated this. I have also translated this. And the wording is very clear. It specifically says, from their hand. If this Pokemon's got a Pokemon tool attached, your opponent cannot play an A-Spec from their hand. If they're using something like this, that is absolutely fine. If an ability or an attack puts a card into play, then that is absolutely fine. That is up for grabs. If it's already in play, that is absolutely fine. And of course, it only works when Genesect has a Pokemon tool attached. So the obvious answer here is, let's play Lost Vacuum. Play Lost Vacuum, discard the tool from Genesect. Genesect no longer has a tool attached. You can go ahead and do what you want. And that is an option. That absolutely is an answer. But I do need to remind you all that how often do you have the exact right card at the exact right time? Sometimes you do. Absolutely, sometimes you do. It's not a given, though, is it? Now, let's say you're playing something like Pidgeot. Yeah, obviously, yeah. If you're playing Pidgeot, then you can just search for your Lost Vacuum and then go for it. And that's going to work fine. And there are some more circuitous routes you can take. So, for instance, if you're playing Arven, then you can use Arven to go and search this out as your item card and then play your A-Spec. Or if you're playing Luminion, you can use Luminion to go and get Arven, to go and get Lost Vacuum as your item card of choice from Arven, which will then get rid of it and let you play your A-Spec. Unless your A-Spec is an item, and you were kind of relying on Arven to search out that, and now you can't search out that because you used Arven to search out your Lost Vacuum. You see where I'm going with this? Sometimes it will work just fine. Sometimes it won't. This is a very, very annoying card. This will have an impact, but it's not perfect. And I'm not saying it is perfect. I absolutely am saying that it is a really good anti-A-Spec card that can completely frustrate your opponent. They cannot play neutral center if this is out with a tool attached. They cannot play Legacy Energy from their hand. They cannot use Prime Catcher to go and gust up. There will be plenty of times that they've already got a tool or stadium in play where they've got Lost Vacuum, etc., etc. But there will be plenty of games where your opponent draws into their A-Spec and they look at your side of the board and there is a Genesect with a tool attached and they're like, brilliant, now what? And that is going to be hilarious. Of course, there is an easy parallel to draw here with Spiritomb. This is very obviously the spiritual successor to Spiritomb. Because, of course, last time we had A-Specs, we had Spiritomb. And, of course, what Spiritomb did was it just said neither player can play A-Specs from their hand. And this is in some ways better than Spiritomb and in some ways worse. The obvious better way is Spiritomb's just there. And you either have to find a way to turn off Spiritomb's ability or KO Spiritomb, or you can't play an A-Spec. But Spiritomb is also double-sided. So you kind of had to play your own A-Spec before putting Spiritomb into play, otherwise you wouldn't be able to play your own A-Spec, and that's kind of a big problem. You need your own A-Spec. And it is nice that with Genesect, you can have this one out, play Genesect, attach a tool immediately, and then your opponent just doesn't have their A-Spec for the turn. Like, that's funny. Although, it does worth mentioning, Spiritomb did actually have a legit useful attack. Single colorless energy, shove your hand into your deck, then draw a number of cards equal to the number of cards in your opponent's hand. Like, if you had a bad start, Spiritomb could get you out of it. Genesect won't. So in a lot of ways, Genesect is worse. But it's A-Spec hate. And it's the only A-Spec hate we've got right now. And I know it's not perfect. And I'm not saying for a second that it is perfect, but I am telling you that it's kind of a cool card and that there are absolutely uses. And, like, let's face it, we've all lost games to a Prime Catcher. We've all, well, if you haven't yet, you're going to lose games to Legacy Energy when you're one prize away from winning the game because Legacy Energy made a bit of a difference. We all lose games because our opponent got their A-Spec. This kind of means they won't. And for that alone, it is an incredibly interesting card and one that I have absolutely got my eye on. I don't think it's as good as Spiritomb, although, like I've said, that there are advantages. I don't think it's as good as Spiritomb, but I do think it could make a difference. While we're here, incidentally, if you're looking for a tool to use, there are a couple that actually do kind of make sense with this. Bravery Charm, because this is a basic Pokemon, to give it an extra 50 HP would be quite nice. Or the other obvious one we're looking at here is Rescue Board, because that will then give you essentially 0 retreat, because you only start off with 1 retreat anyway. They're fine. I mean, they seem to be the best 2 options for this. I don't think they're amazing, but I think they'll do the job quite nicely. But here's the thing I want to hit on just quickly here. Genesect and Pokemon tools. There's something going on with the TCG because, of course, this is not the first time we've had a Genesect that interacts with tools rather nicely. Like Genesect GX, for instance, that could have 2 Pokemon tools attached to it. That was a fun one. Or Genesect EX, that let you put a Pokemon tool card attached to this Pokemon back into your hand. It's not all of them, but it is enough of them to kind of make me take a double take. Also, as a side note, Pokemon clearly, or somebody on the design team, clearly loves Genesect, because Genesect gets all of the love. All of it. And of course, one important question here is this as far as it goes? Because we had Spiritomb last time, and that was about it. We didn't have much else in terms of we don't want A-Specs. They were like, you know what? Have Spiritomb, that'll do. But I don't think this is necessarily enough. So I am really interested to see if we get more, if this goes a little bit further in the future. Either way, I'm a little bit hyped to see. For now, I want to know what you think about Genesect. I want to know if you think it is going to be a big deal, whether you think it is going to turn away all of those pesky specs for good, or whether you think it is just part of the puzzle. Go nuts in the comment section, but be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts, and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.